Have you ever wondered about the intricate web of events that have shaped the Middle East in the last 20 years? The region's recent history is a tapestry of significant happenings, interwoven with threads of wars, uprisings, and geopolitical rivalries. Each thread, each event, has played a pivotal role in shaping the Middle East as we know it today. From the Iraq War that began in 2003, to the wave of protests and uprisings, known as the Arab Spring that swept across the region in 2010, the Middle East has been a stage for dramatic and impactful events. The continuous conflict in Syria and Yemen, the rise and decline of ISIS, and the persistent Israeli-Palestinian conflict are all integral parts of this complex narrative. Understanding these events isn't just about revisiting the past. It's about gaining a deeper comprehension of the present and foreseeing possible future trajectories. It's about appreciating the struggles, the triumphs, and the resilience of the people who call this region home. Walk with us now as we navigate the complex timeline of the Middle East's recent past. March 2003 marked the beginning of a major conflict in Iraq. The United States, in collaboration with a coalition of allies, launched an invasion against the country. The catalyst for this military action was a combination of concerns, primarily revolving around Iraq's supposed possession of weapons of mass destruction and its alleged links to terrorism. The result? The overthrow of Saddam Hussein's regime. However, this was not the end, but rather the beginning of a new chapter of strife for Iraq. The country spiraled into a prolonged insurgency, and sectarian violence became a part of everyday life. A power vacuum was created, leading to an increase in instability. The United States and its allies remained in Iraq for several years, attempting to restore order and establish a new government. However, by the end of 2011, all US combat troops had been officially withdrawn. Yet the shadow of war lingered. Iraq continued to face a multitude of internal struggles, including political tensions and the rise of extremist groups like ISIS. The war's aftermath left Iraq grappling with political tensions and extremist threats. A wave of protests swept across the Arab world starting in late 2010. This groundswell of civil discontent, known as the Arab Spring, emerged from a potent mix of economic hardship, political corruption, and the stifling of individual freedoms under authoritarian rule. The spark that ignited this regional blaze was in Tunisia, where a single act of defiance by a street vendor set off a chain reaction of uprisings across several nations. From the shores of the Mediterranean to the Arabian Peninsula, people took to the streets in an unprecedented show of solidarity. Egypt, Libya, Yemen, Syria, Bahrain. The list of countries affected was extensive and diverse. Citizens, driven by a shared desire for change, voiced their grievances in a powerful cry for justice and democracy. However, the Arab Spring did not blossom uniformly. In some countries like Egypt and Tunisia, the protests led to regime changes. But in others, such as Syria and Libya, the uprisings descended into prolonged, devastating conflicts. The Arab Spring, in its wake, left a complex legacy of hope, change, and turmoil. While some nations saw regime changes, others spiraled into prolonged conflicts. In Syria, peaceful protests in 2011 spiraled into a devastating civil war. The demonstrations against Bashar al-Assad's government were met with brutal force, pushing the nation into a conflict of unimaginable proportions. The civil war's complexity is heightened by the involvement of a multitude of factions. The Syrian government, various opposition groups, jihadist organizations, Kurdish forces, and international actors all support different sides, further entangling the web of conflict. The human toll has been staggering. The war has resulted in widespread devastation, with hundreds of thousands of lives lost. It has also triggered one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises, displacing millions both within Syria and forcing many to seek refuge abroad. As we shift our gaze to Yemen, we find another country in the throes of a brutal civil war. The conflict escalated in 2014 when Houthi rebels, purportedly backed by Iran, seized control of Sana'a and other parts of Yemen. In response, a Saudi-led coalition intervened in 2015, aiming to restore the Yemeni government and counter the Houthi rebels. This intervention transformed the conflict into a protracted battle with devastating humanitarian consequences. Widespread famine and disease have swept across the country, bringing about a deteriorating humanitarian situation that the world has struggled to address effectively. The civil wars in Syria and Yemen, both ongoing, have left deep scars on the Middle East's landscape. The complexity of the conflicts, compounded by foreign intervention and geopolitical rivalries, has made resolution a daunting task. Both wars have resulted in catastrophic humanitarian crises, with no end in sight. 2014 saw the rise of a new extremist group, ISIS. Emerging from the power vacuum left by the Iraq War, ISIS, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, captured significant territory in both countries, declaring a self-proclaimed caliphate. This reign of terror, however, was not to last. A coalition, spearheaded by the US and regional partners, launched a concerted military campaign against the group, leading to a steady decline in their territorial hold. By 2019, ISIS had lost most of its territory, but remnants of the group persisted, maintaining sporadic attacks and an insurgency in certain areas. Meanwhile, the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian conflict continued unabated. This complex dispute, marked by periodic escalations in violence, hinged on contentious issues such as settlements, access to holy sites, and the status of Jerusalem. Instances of conflict range from the Gaza wars like Operation Cast Lead, Operation Pillar of Defense to Operation Protective Edge, each causing significant civilian casualties and damage. Despite ISIS's territorial losses, its remnants persist, while the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to be a source of tension. The Middle East's recent history is also marked by geopolitical rivalries and attempts at diplomacy. Over the years, the region has seen intense proxy conflicts, particularly involving Iran and Saudi Arabia. These two powers, each with their respective allies, have often found themselves on opposite sides of the battlefield, their disputes playing out in the wars of Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. This has only served to exacerbate the region's instability. But amidst the turmoil, there have been concerted efforts to bring about diplomatic resolutions. Ceasefires have been attempted, peace talks initiated, and negotiations have been held in various conflicts throughout the region. These efforts, while often fraught with challenges, demonstrate the ongoing attempts to restore stability and peace. In terms of recent developments, the landscape continues to shift. Political dynamics evolve, alliances change, and new challenges emerge. Yet, the quest for resolution persists, underscoring the region's resilience and the complexity of its geopolitical landscape. Achieving lasting stability in the Middle East remains a significant challenge, but understanding its recent history is a crucial step in that direction.